Welcome to another episode of The Practical Metaphysical Journey, the place where practical meets the paranormal, the mundane meets the metaphysical, and the spiritual meets the spooky. A place where we share the experiences of our journeys here on Earth. We encourage you to listen and see what resonates, because we're all different yet the same. We invite you to take a break with us, so unpack and stay a while. We're glad you stopped by for a visit.
Welcome, everybody, to the Practical Metaphysical Journey. This is our podcast where we get together and talk about things metaphysical and otherwise, and our journey on the search. I'm Deb, and with me is Dave and Lisa. And the topic today is going to be something that anyone who's into metaphysics or anything spiritual or that type of thing, paranormal, has probably come up against, and it's talking about metaphysics with skeptics. We've all been there, I'm sure. We have family members, friends, people who just feel free to chime in on posts or in random conversations who don't understand what it is that we believe or are doing or where our consciousness is at the moment, and they're skeptical and claim to maybe just be science-minded, but maybe just don't have a good understanding of what metaphysics is and where the two combine at times, and where they differentiate. So, I guess the first thing is to define metaphysics, and this is a combination of a couple of sources. Metaphysics, according to definition, is the scientific study of consciousness and existence to achieve a more fulfilling and enlightening existence and a greater awareness of the human condition. It's the study of what lies beyond the physical and explores existence, consciousness, energy, and the unseen forces that shape reality. So it brings up or maybe helps us answer some of the questions of who we are, why are we here, and it can tie into a lot of other factors like science with quantum physics, which I'm not even going to pretend to understand that. I'm lucky I can spell quantum because that's about where my brain shuts right down. But I know David certainly has a better awareness of that, and is striving in some of those directions. And it can also tie into your belief and how you were raised, what you believe in, religious beliefs or anything like that. And for some of our topics that we are involved in, it involves crystals and even meditation, mediumship, paranormal studies, and a host of other things that, sometimes witchcraft or Wicca, and a lot of other topics that are out there, and I didn't want to list them all. But, so, everybody's going to have a story about this too, I'm sure, because this is just what happens to us all. And it can be tough to define and tell people what it is, why we believe in it, and then kind of overcome what their feelings and beliefs are on the subject, and also to know when to let go of having that conversation with somebody, not putting ourselves in that uncomfortable situation where we're having to be defensive about something, or as I was recently accosted with, well, where's the science? Where's the science? I'm not going to be able to pull up names, dates, and all this type of stuff to support a lot of my things, and I chose different things that I knew of that were certainly easily findable, and that anyone can look up on Google, and that's when I got to, well, that's just on Google. Now I got to go and explain Google and where those resources come from. So now, is this really worth the conversation? What is the end game in even discussing this? So, I don't know. How do you guys broach this if somebody asks the questions of you? I mean, it's hard when people say, well, because I know we do Reiki, and there's, a lot of other practices that we're involved in that if people don't understand, I always get that little bit of a gut punch going, here we go.
Well, I feel if they've asked a question, they're open. So whether they receive the answer or not, like you guys, it's like, well, you just choose your battles. Like if they're not open to receive it, that's them. That's nothing about you. That's them with their being shut down. But if they've asked the question, I just kind of
you hope they're
Yeah,
asking because they're interested.
Right. And I just be as honest as I can. I preface a lot of things within my experience. So that way I'm not being the expert on it, but I can tell you what I've experienced. And I think that brings the level down. So I'm not talking authoritative to them or talking down to them. I'm just letting them know, hey, this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
And I kind of bring it down to that level.
Yeah, which makes sense because our experiences are all different in this, and it's just, we all experience things differently.
You know what? I'll tell you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, get it.
Just as an example, I start a business because I like Reiki and I'm doing my energy work, and then I open the space up to have meditation, and we get a group of people coming fairly regularly, and then I get to see there's people that are psychic, there's people that are more mediumship, there's people that do more like tarot and all the different things, right? It's all the things. And then I get to have exposure to that, which I think is exciting, but I don't understand all of it. But if I can have those neutral feelings about something, it makes me more receptive, because even though I don't understand it, it doesn't mean that it's not true or it's not happening. So I kind of bring that into the conversations too sometimes, just because you don't have that experience. But I think a lot of times it's hitting a nerve in someone where they are having those experiences and it's bumping up against their religion or whatever that looks like, and it kind of triggers the scare or fear. It kind of triggers that in them because they're going up against a belief system that they have. So
yeah, I think that plays a big part is in having that conversation with people. If the conflict is with their belief system, then that's probably where you were saying that's probably the point you get to. I'm not here to convince you otherwise. You're going to believe what you believe, for now. Okay. And that's okay. And then, kind of stop. As I've grown more confident to talk to people about this, I've been surprised at how many people believe it already.
It's interesting.
I have found that it's more often people have been afraid to talk about this
because they're not sure how they're
going to be perceived.
Yeah.
But soon as I admit to people that I do psychic work, and then they open up right away, and it's okay. I'm surprised, and many of them then do start to ask questions, and Lisa, like you, use a lot of in my experience, like psychic mediumship. Okay, if you don't believe that, years ago I would not have believed it, but out of the things that I have experienced myself,
right,
I can't say it doesn't exist. Too many things have happened that just I can't explain why.
Right.
And the whole science thing, I start going to, thinking back 50 years, what science was able to measure and prove back then.
Right.
We can measure and prove things today that 50 years ago we didn't have the capability
exactly
to measure it.
Yeah.
Think about things like an MRI or a CAT scan.
Right. Even an X-ray.
Even an X-ray. So there was times before X-rays that we couldn't see the bone structure necessarily inside someone. And now with MRIs and CAT scans, we can see everything. Soft tissue, and X-rays good at the bones and the heart structures and all that. So if somebody's looking for the proof, it very possibly could be that today we can't measure that thing.
Right.
But doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Right. When I volunteered at the MOSH, the Museum of Science History downtown, there was a section of the museum where it was rotating exhibits. So every 6 months they'd switch it out. And we had one come through that was called Science Fiction, Science Fact. And it was all about what we talked about in science fiction now is something we have capability to do.
Cell phones.
Phones and all of
beam
that.
me up, Scotty. With they're talking to each other on the ship, but through a tricorder or whatever the heck they had, and all their little communication things. And look, it's there.
Yeah. Just the stuff that we can accomplish today, and there's a whole universe out there. We don't know what's out there, so how can you say something doesn't exist? We don't know everything yet, so you've got to be I think open-minded to kind of talk about that. But going back to, if I'm having that conversation though, and somebody's it's triggering them to kind of shut down, or like, my beliefs right now are in jeopardy, so I'm going to fight you on this.
Right.
Stop. It's not the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to say that in 5 years you'll see that person on the street again and they'll go, hey, you know what? Something happened to me, and I thought about the conversation we had. Can I ask questions? You don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Anything could happen. Or just that's it. It's tough to kind of be able to walk away from it. And in a conversation I had recently, in talking about my crystals and energy and that, and rocks and energy and that type of thing. And that was the thing, well, that's just blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it's not just blah, blah, blah. And here's why. Piezoelectricity. You take two crystals, you bang them together, a spark forms. Then it's a low-level light. I mean, we literally use diamonds and quartz in watches and in medical equipment. That's how we do the MRIs. There's crystals that work in there. They use sapphires and rubies and things for different lab studies and equipment and all, because of the hardness of the stones, and that they emit a vibration and type of energy. And I'm not going to sit there. I don't feel obligated to go back and find out the person's name who came up with this, and ask their relatives 6 generations from then to prove it still. It's just funny. It's like, what is it about it that is making you fight me so hard on this? Why don't you want to believe this? And the thing is, too, I said, well, even if you don't believe in them and think any of this is true, how do you explain a placebo effect? Not even crystal related, where, whatever, I choose this because whatever gives me comfort, or it's a focus to my intent to feeling better, regardless of whether you believe that something resonates with a particular part of the body or a system. That's okay. Placebos work in a lot of different areas. So how can you say that that's not proof when that's been studied too?
While you're saying that, it makes you think of like paint colors for walls.
Exactly.
That's not a crystal.
Right.
It's a paint on a wall. But when you walk into a room that has a certain color on the wall, you either want to go in that room or you don't. Or it makes you excited or it makes you tired, or
People market around that.
Exactly.
Restaurants being red because it
There's
increases.
some science.
That's it. There's some science. Why are you making me try to prove it? I'm sorry. I'm a witch. Fine. Burn me. So I'm sorry. So yeah, it's just interesting to have that conversation, and then it's just funny because it depends on who you're talking to and how to get out of that situation too. So with me, I just have to go to distract and deflect, and just take it right off the rails to something else, or say, well, why don't you believe that? Why not? Why? What doesn't sound right about that to you? Because I'd like to know. Let me learn from you. I'm not going to change where I stand on things, but I'll give them a chance to talk if that's what they're looking for.
And some people just like to argue.
That's it, exactly. Some people are great debaters, and that's what their thing. And they, whether they have an end game or not in it, trying to prove me wrong or just trying to yak for the sake of yakking, whatever. But I caught myself really becoming very defensive about it, and not changing my mind. But it's like I was kind of going to, well, how can I prove this to you? But even though I know I can't. And it was actually just really pissing me off. And I'm like, wow, I'm getting rattled by something that I do not need to. And I was able to, back myself right off and go, why do I care what this person believes or doesn't believe? Whether they're family, friend, foe, person on the street, why am I wrapped up in this? Is there something I'm not believing in this, or is there something I'm not experiencing in this? So it's like, or what am I holding on for?
I know, it's like almost like we're going to say, you know what? it's okay that you don't understand it, but it's very important to my life, and it makes me feel fulfilled.
Yes.
So
yes.
just going to leave it there, you
Yeah,
know, like
just
it works
drop it.
for me. If it doesn't work for you, that's perfectly okay.
Yep. In my experience, like you said, the experiences, nobody can debate your experience. They can debate your experiences, but you know what they are. So whether it's, you know, being able to get a message from somebody's family member or see something that might happen, because we all have those messages too, and it's just it's an interesting conversation to try to have with people. And then, you know, when I started trying to break it down, well, this says this and this says this and this, and I'm like, why am I'm exhausted now from standing.
Mission accomplished on their end.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
wanted
You
to-
win.
Yeah.
You win.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the notes that you had put together, a lot of it did talk about it, you know, referencing everything through experiences that you had. So I think that if someone's open to listen to you,
Yeah.
that's definitely part of the conversation. We could kind of say it before of, you know, here's what I've seen or what I felt, and,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
That-
I'm
that's
not
gonna be-
expecting it to all be the same with everybody. Everybody's got little things that happen, and maybe they're just waking up to it and scared and not really sure. So they're looking for
That's what I'm
prove it
thinking.
to me. Prove
Yeah,
it to me.
I
gotta
think they
know
have had an
that-
experience that they can't explain,
yeah.
and they're afraid to tell you or be even acknowledge it within themselves, like it really did happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a
Yeah.
quick story. So, I was with a group of friends at my house where I grew up, and it was my sister's at this point. Her and her husband had bought it, and we were there with some friends. All the guys were out back doing something, and me and my sister were sitting at the kitchen table. And we had just spent a day of inviting anybody over to the house that wanted to have Reiki, and we're doing healing sessions all day. And at some point, my cousin says, "Well, you know that Grandpa's side of the family, you know, blah 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 blah. There was like a healer that would put herbs together, and people from the community would come to this person and get healing." I was like, I never heard that story. Are you kidding me? How did I not know that, right? So I'm all excited, like, ooh, the healing comes from my grandpa's side of the family, you know, kind of thinking that. But so anyways, at some point, one of our friends, I see him walking by the kitchen window, and then he went back the other way, and then all of a sudden, all the guys came in the house, and I thought, okay, and they walk in, they were like, "Where's the guy?" And we said, "What guy?" And they said, "The guy that was sitting there at the table with you." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "There was a man sitting there with you and Lana, and he had like, you know, gray hair, you know, where is he?" They were thinking that it was the neighbor guy, because he was kind of getting after them for the noise they were making out back. So he thought that the guy had come over and come in to confront us instead of going out there. And we said, "There's nobody here. There's been nobody here." And then I got like this tingling feeling, and I said, "Wait a minute. Tell me more about this man you saw." I said, "He had gray hair. Was it like almost like a flat top, like cropped?" He goes, "Yeah. And he's telling me this thing." I said, "Hold on just a second," because my sister had a picture of my grandparents back where we were doing the Reiki all day. And I went and got the picture, and I come out. My grandfather at that point had been passed away for quite a few years. I said, "Does this man look like the man you saw?" And he said, yeah, that's him. I said, "Well, that's our grandpa, and he's been dead for blah, blah years."
Love it.
And my friend literally grabbed the counter. He felt weak in the knees, and
Yeah.
he went pale. Like, he was like, "Are you kidding me?" Of course, me and my sister were like, "Oh, my grandpa!" You know, we're all excited,
You're
right?
reveling in it.
But my friend was just like, "Are you kidding me? What is going on right now?" Like, it just blew his mind wide open. But those are the things, like, you cannot explain that, right?
Yeah.
I could share this story with you, but unless
Sure.
you were there or it happened, like my friend, I'll have to ask him now that years have passed since that experience, what he looks back on that, if he even remembers it, you know.
Right.
But for me, it was very impactful because it was like, wow, you know, something's happening, something,
Yeah.
you know, spiritually, metaphysical, you know, whatever phenomenon is happening.
Well,
You
the
know,
more we learn about things that they're discovering now with quantum stuff and time warps, and I mean, there was just an article, and I'm quoting this way off the cuff because Jody showed it to me, that there's some sort of a quantum entanglement where things that we do now can actually affect things that have happened in the past. So
Makes sense to me, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, so wait, I could have spent 10 years not being fat? How far back are we talking? How far back are we talking? Because wait a second now, hold it. How far back can I go here? Or, it's just, it's interesting, and they're still talking about, that time and the different dimensions and things like that. And, these aren't, I guess, a lot of them, they're not tangible things that we can reach out and just open the door to, I don't know, 1860, whatever, and walk back through. Maybe yet, but who knows? We don't know everything that there is to know as much as we think we do.
That makes me think of like people that do lineage healing or going back in Akashic records and that kind of thing. Speak from a spiritual standpoint. I mean, that makes sense to me,
Sure.
Right? So why would it not for me? I don't know what he was watching, like what exactly it was, but that...
Yeah, it was some article that popped up somewhere, and it showed me some odd design of something, and if I can think of it, I'll send it to include it. But it was just some strange thing that he caught me in passing with. And I mean, there's so much out there we don't know a lot about. We're still finding civilizations and Gopalkatepe and all these other places that we never knew about that are older than ones that we previously discovered. And so who's to say? And the Earth being millions of years old and things in there. And
well, if we go back to the definition of metaphysics, like you had before, part of that was we were looking at what lies beyond the physical.
Yeah.
So in my mind, when we talk about time or those types of things, that is a human construct. That's something that we designed to measure things.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So what's beyond that physical thing we're measuring?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, even things as far as, aliens and that type of thing. Well, now all of a sudden we've got the confirmation, air quotes, of old Project Blue Book things and footage and whatnot of, different UAPs or UFOs, whatever they are deciding to call them now, that people are admitting were there. Well, sure. So what else do we not know about? I guess it's just... but it's difficult. I find it very difficult when somebody comes at me with a very strict religious, say, intolerance to what I am interested in.
Yeah, I struggle with the same thing, and I've had this conversation with Claire multiple times of I get frustrated with a lot of religions because of and here's my perspective coming in of or perception. It's like they're giving you a set of beliefs that you have to believe in.
Yeah.
And I would rather talk to you about like why do you believe that? Like going back to what we said before of experiences. Like what experiences have you had that makes you believe what you're saying? And just to quote back something that somebody told you, that's one of my triggers. That just,
again,
I get frustrated with that. And I'm better at it now because it's more of, okay, I got to realize they're not ready to talk about it.
Right.
And I can't say that that's wrong.
Right. That's their boundary.
Yeah.
And that's their beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's their experiences.
And it's another human construct. So who's to say that there's not more out there? And I don't go out to argue people's religion with them. It's just not what I'm interested in doing. Do what you want to do, and I'm not agnostic. I have religious beliefs as well, but I can see where things expand beyond what we've been told and what was written about a few thousand years ago. So, especially as the universe, it gets bigger and smaller at the same time as we discover more and more about it. And, who's to say that light speed is actually light speed? How are we measuring it? Does somebody actually clock in this thing or what? It's just these things that we can't necessarily see that whether we believe in it or follow it, or just, I'm more open to things than strict believer to a lot of things, because by being open, that just means like, okay, there's a possibility to it. I believe my experiences that I've had with, different psychic experiences and interactions with crystals and energy medicine and all sorts of other things, and with people and with animals. So I know what I've felt and what I've seen happen, but I'm also open to more stuff too. I don't shut down anybody else's beliefs or lack of beliefs. I'm not going to say, well, you believe in a book written blah 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 by blah blah blah, and prove it.
We could do a whole episode probably on religions, because when I think about it, I'm like, if you believe in reincarnation, we've probably been and done that,
right?
Maybe, I don't know. But if we've always come back, let's say, as Christian, like how do you square like just different parts of the world?
Yeah,
there's.
It's a belief in one area, but not in this church area, and so it's like
my way or the highway.
Exactly. And what makes you so uncomfortable about it? That's my question.
Well, yeah.
And like I said, I that is one of the things I personally struggle with, if you want to call it, is dealing with the religions. But where I'm starting to get to is also, I see that same behaviors with spiritual community, where going to like the crystals. Well, I have to have an amethyst because somebody told me the amethyst is what calms me down.
Right.
Now, if you've experienced it, that's different. But yeah, so that's why I'm struggling with it, and my opinions on things are changing a little bit as far as religions are concerned.
Yeah.
Is because I can't say spirituality is the only way to go either, because I'm seeing that same thing where people, like, I believe these things because somebody told me to believe that rock does something specific.
Take two amethyst and a rose quartz and see me in the morning.
Yeah, or even Reiki, or the colors of the wall and all that kind of stuff. Which something we had mentioned. Well, I think we mentioned it when we did the crystals episode. It's your intention. That's what drives a lot of this stuff. Yeah,
like when I started getting crystals to use like in sessions, I was pretty like, ooh, like I got to put the right ones in the right place and that kind of thing. And then one time I was just like, you know what? I tuned into my own intuition, and I thought, you know what? If I believe that we've got guides and the higher, there's source energy, everything's, this is for the highest and best for the client, then it doesn't matter. So then it gave me a chance to kind of broaden out and really start to tune into my senses of what was happening in the moment. And I couldn't even tell you what some of those crystals are now. Like I was so like, I needed to remember all of what I had. And I'm like, you know what? It's not important now. If I can, great, because sometimes that is good information if a client wants to know, if they, like you said. But it's still, it becomes a belief system that this is the only rock that can bring whatever.
This is the only one that will absorb negativity, and you have to have this for this. No, anything, rock on the street if you like it and it's pretty, whatever, dog park rock, whatever.
And amethyst, like, that may turn someone off, and then they feel like now they're creating a negative thing within themselves because they can't be calm around amethyst. Like, I don't like to create that kind of I
did a lot of research into why things, because the question was asked to me, who says that this does this and this? And it's interesting, you go back in time and the different attributes that were assigned to these stones came from ancient Greeks or other different cultures with whatever, that was what they put their belief into. So is it just because they followed, the shaman of the day or the healer of the day or whoever, the seer, who that was their experience with it? And
that's what they had in their country. Amethyst was the stone that they were uncovering at the time,
Completely, exactly. Well, and amethyst is supposed to help prevent drunkenness. There's been many a time I have proven that wrong. Not gonna lie. So, and it's also like, if I carry this stone, am I not going to get shot or killed. Well, if it hits the crystal, I'll be fine. But I'm not wearing a shield of it, so it doesn't have those kind of magical powers. And it is. I think it's the power of belief. Take, like you said, just learn, experience things, see what your intentions and your feelings are with anything like that. And it's the same thing too. We've noticed it like in psychic mediumship. If somebody comes in and they want to block you, or guess what's going on. It's like, you either want this because there's something you feel I can offer you, or I'm not here to play medium Olympics. So, just because you want to prove me wrong and say, aha, no, that name didn't begin with an M, it began with a W. Well, maybe I'm dyslexic, you don't know.
Yeah, there's the act of proving something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that was part 1 of our episode on Talking Metaphysics.